When it comes right down to it, everyone wants to belong, even monsters. Solitary creatures out of necessity, circumstance will, on occasion, see these outsiders forge unlikely alliances to achieve a common goal, like taking over the world, or bedeviling Lou Costello. Indeed, such horrific assemblages are now legendary, celebrated in cinema and song. I mean, why prowl the countryside alone when you can join a club, a squad, or maybe even a legion? Legion of Monsters #1 first haunted newsstands in August of 1975. Featuring a Neil Adams cover no self-respecting monster kid could deny, this 64-page black and white magazine was fat-packed with horror tales told in that inimitable Marvel manner. The debut issue featured contemporary interpretations of classic public domain characters Dracula and Frankenstein's monster, as well as the entirely unexpected aquatic debut of original Marvel creation, the Manphibian. Free of the Comics Code of Authority seal, this magazine-size offering was able to push the envelope a little further than its four-color cousins when it came to horrific imagery and situations. And it wasn't brought to us by a bunch of pikers. This issue is a veritable who's who of industry titans. Dave Cockrum, Jerry Conway, Dick Giordano, Tony Isabella, Paul Kirshner, Val Mayerick, Doug Monick, Ralph Reese, Roy Thomas, Marv Wolfman, and other creators pulled their storytelling prowess to deliver some seasonal thrills and chills during the final hazy quarter of 1975. But was it any good? Our first story, The Monster in the Mask, was written by Doug Monick, with art by Val Mayerick, Dan Adkins, and Pablo Marcos. We begin with Frankenstein feeling sorry for himself on some grimy metropolitan curbside. He's just so danged alone, is all. Then, unexpectedly, a vision in white streaks past, a princess in period clothing hurrying to... where? Compelled by this delicate beauty, the monster pursues, following through the nighted streets to a mansion on the outskirts of the city. Her lingering scent on the evening breeze beckons the creature forward, and he follows her inside, in spite of knowing the inevitable repercussions. And hey, what do you know? It's a shindig, 1970s style. I even spy a certain wall crawler, although I'm sure most readers were more focused on the scantily clad ladies. Inside, the platinum-tressed beauty once again catches Frankie's eye. This is Cynthia, tardy to the party but no less popular for it. And it's clear why. I mean, look at how she's drawn. Before Frank can get her astrological sign, he's set upon by a werewolf. The big guy makes short work of his lupine attacker, only it's just some clown in a mask. Larry Talbot here doesn't take it personal. It's a great costume, and this new guy can really stay in character. The mismatched pair hit the punch bowl, and Frankie makes like the Romans do, indulging in a little liquid refreshment. It's good. Maybe a little too good, as the monster begins knocking him back. Only his binging does not go unobserved, dark eyes watching from a distance. Then, like a dream, Lady Cynthia suddenly appears, gliding across the ballroom floor. Wolfman Andy introduces Frank to the object of his desire. Sadly, the monster is too tongue-tied and mute to reply. But that's alright. Cindy likes the strong silent type. Taking him by his oversized mitt, she guides the monster out to the dance floor, and even leads. What a trooper. However, moves that are easy for a 5-foot-tall princess prove a little too complex for an 8-foot-tall corpse man. Falling on his can, the room erupts in laughter, but the group's ugly laughter is muted by the sympathetic understanding in the princess's eyes. She helps him to his feet and, after a fleeting caress, slips off to rejoin the party. Frankie is warned by a strange gesture that Cynthia is in danger of being murdered tonight, with her husband the most likely suspect. The monster is told to tell the guy in the knight's costume and not to worry about his new muse, and the smitten beast complies. He follows the knight, much to the man's growing dismay. Simultaneously, a swashbuckler is relieved of his sword by some light-fingered thief. At the top of the stair, the monster is confronted by the hosts of the party, who have taken umbrage at his seeming rudeness. Things spiral out of hand quickly, Frank dismissing the knight with the back of his hand. The battered man slides down the wall, unconscious. Just then, a shriek rings out. The monster rushes to investigate, only to discover the seemingly benevolent jester has slain his beloved princess, and the monster has inadvertently helped him. The madman flings the bloody sword at the monster's feet, proof enough for the newly arrived witnesses. They accuse the monster of the terrible crime and attack, discovering the unthinkable truth in the process. This is no elaborate costume. Frank is the real deal. The party guests scramble, but the monster will not be distracted by the panic. He sets off after the murderous jester, but the man has a significant lead on him, escaping in a car. No matter. Strength will suffice where speed cannot. A hurled stone gargoyle, Frank's instrument of vengeance. He drops brutally to the ground, but is unfazed, driven only by thoughts of revenge against the man who has extinguished the sole bright light in his life. The jester, fearing for his own existence, opens fire on the lumbering titan, but it's too late. Far too late. For anyone. With that, the monster wanders off into the night, police sirens growing ever closer as he slips back into the shadows. Daubing his wound with Cynthia's lost scarf, he ambles on towards an uncertain fate. Bittersweet stuff, but don't get too maudlin. Following on, and the Dracula story presented here is actually a carryover from the cancelled Tomb of Dracula magazine, not to be confused with the concurrent comic of the same name, an adaptation of Bram Stoker's original novel. This is a problem right off the bat, so to speak. After all, this is the first issue of an ongoing magazine, and yet there's already baggage. New readers are plopped down in the middle of an ongoing tale with the sketchiest of backgrounds and left to work through it themselves. Obviously, if you've read the novel, this isn't super difficult, but should I really need to do homework to read a flippin' monster magazine? The artwork is nice, though. Our third story of the issue introduces the Manphibian. A store-brand creature of the Black Lagoon, this guy's got something to prove from the jump, and he knows it. Maybe that's why he's so hostile. Here's Manny crawling out of an oil pipe. Turns out he's been asleep for 1,000 years, and he's grumpy before his coffee. Frustratingly, we cut away immediately to this quarrelsome couple. Wife Beth calls husband Aaron Fox a monster because that's what he is, and he in turn accuses her of seducing teenage boys. She gives him a scuff and then bails, speeding off to the airport in a limo. Only driver Fenton's checks are cashed by Aaron, and so he just kind of drives around until the boss calls him home. At least that's the plan. Only there's a Manphibian blocking the road. It hurls a tree trunk through the limo window, causing the inhabitants to scatter. Unfortunately, Fenton is a slow runner and is brutally mauled by the marauding menace. But wait, 2 Manphibians? Manphibii? Hold on, though. Cut away back to the mansion where all hell is broken loose in the oil fields. It's Shaft 27. A monster's just crawled out of it. Outside, our generic Gillman flashes back to 1,000 years ago when his finny foe took the life of his mate. Murder was once unthinkable among your kind, but there's always that one bad apple. Thus, you sought vengeance, and now, in the 20th century, you will at last have it. Simultaneously, the Fox One chopper rushes to Shaft 27, a risky maneuver considering its high-tech nature. No need to worry about that, though. 2 monsters are fighting. Chests are kicked, logs are thrown, and our Manphibian, presumably the good one, although it's pretty hard to tell them apart, the beast finds itself drawn to Beth Fox, struggling to rescue her from his diabolical double. Easier said than done, as the 2 prehistoric horrors are evenly matched. That said, our boy has a vast reserve of personal remorse to draw upon, and he perseveres. Breaking away from combat, Manny rushes to Beth, who can't breathe underwater, apparently. With the Fox One hovering overhead, Manphibian breaches the surface and is promptly set upon by the oil derrick crew. However, before they can make any headway, Fox takes the controls and opens fire. The devastation is immediate, the barrage killing 2 of the oil tycoon's own men. Fox is dropped off in the oil field so that he might claim the missiles were fired accidentally while the craft returns to the sky. Unfortunately, the pilot is a touch over-eager to curry favor with his employer and fires on the Manphibian again. He's a crap shot and ends up hitting the oil well instead of the monster, causing the structure to go up. Unsurprisingly, Beth is left worse for wear, being at ground zero of the explosion and all. Turns out she's a vegetable now, giving Fox the motivation he needs to move into the role of the heavy. As for Manny, he's put any lingering doubts aside, choosing violence. Go for it, Tiger. By now, anyone anticipating the monster team-up the cover so strongly suggested would realize that these guys were operating on their own, as usual, and Marvel wondered why these books weren't doing as well as they should. A legion of monsters assembled by the Lord of Vampires to wreak havoc on an unsuspecting world seems like a saleable concept for the era, so how Marvel cocked it up is anyone's guess. The issue is rounded out by an odd little story by Ralph Reese entitled The Flies. I've been a big fan of Reese's work ever since I encountered it in Weird Heroes Volume 6, but it doesn't really fit with the rest of this episode, so we'll save it for a future edition. There's also some artwork and a text feature for those of you really looking to get your money's worth. Unsurprisingly, issue 2 never materialized. Marvel's oversaturating the magazine market with product led to an overall softening of sales for all publishers, much to Jim Warren's dismay. In fact, the House of Ideas had already turned out the lights on many of their earlier supernatural offerings, instead refocusing their magazine line with strong sellers like Conan the Barbarian, the Rampaging Hulk, and its anemic mad spin-off, Crazy. The Legion, however, marched on, if in name only, and this time, they were in color. Marvel Premiere 28 sees an entirely new Legion of monsters. There was the Ghost Rider, whose early appearances in Marvel's spotlight led to a successful solo title. He was joined by the macabre Man-Thing, who'd had his own scene going an adventure into fear, with fellow monster Morbius, the living vampire, taking the book over with issue 20. Rounding out this kooky quartet was Werewolf by Night, who'd also had his own book since 1972. All in all, a fairly heady combo, but how did they pair? The answer can be found inside. Our story begins with a recap of our main character's origins, just to make sure that any new readers are up to speed. The action takes place in L.A., specifically the concrete scab known as the San Fernando Valley. And what do you know, it's an earthquake that results in nothing less than a mountain on Sunset Boulevard. Stuntman Johnny Blaze is thrown from his bike by the eruption. After remounting it, he speeds up the freshly sprouted mountain to investigate, transforming into a skull-headed alter ego in the process. And L.A. has changed. The earthquake-ravaged ruins giving way to a verdant paradise. Even more shocking, something there is calling Blaze's name. Moments before, Morbius, the living vampire, was stalking the night, hunting for fresh prey. He noticed movement on a rooftop and swooped down, slashing the shadowy figure with his claws. Only this was no free lunch. It was, in fact, Jack Russell, aka Werewolf by Night. Turns out they'd tangled before, so there's obviously some bad blood between them, so to speak. The pair face off, but it's then the mountain manifests, shocking them out of their violence. We cut away again in that classic Marvel manner to the swamps and a little night fishing. Only our errant rodsman here is not alone, but does in fact share the bayou with the macabre Man-Thing. The muck monster is drawn, compelled by the shimmering mountain that suddenly spawned in his backyard. We break back to the biters. Morbius is also drawn to this startling new geographic feature and flies on, his hunger suddenly forgotten. The werewolf's rage, however, continues to burn, and he pursues and attacks the living vampire again. Only Morb is more focused on an object lying in the dirt. It's Blaze's motorcycle, the engine still warm. Only where is the rider? And what manner of madness is this? Swamp Monster Man-Thing joins the other unsuspecting players as the Game Master unexpectedly reveals himself. Meet Starseed, an enigmatic golden alien riding a horse. As if that wasn't weird enough, Blaze seems to know this luminous being, although the memory is long shrouded. Starseed explains that they all know him in their way. The strange entity then gives them a vision, one of savagery and survival among primitive men. However, some of these men were different and fled to the mountains, where a new civilization was quickly established. Left to their own devices, these pilgrims soon evolved into Romans? Greeks? It's a moot point as these creepy one-eyed aliens invade, wiping out the leaders and kifing the entire mountain. Only the aliens didn't count on the humans' resourcefulness. Toiling in caves hidden inside the stolen mountain, they create new technology that allows them to overthrow their cyclopean overlords and return their mountain to Earth. Two problems. All of the others are dead, and Earth's continents have shifted over time, and Starseed has plopped the mountain down in the middle of LA. Blaze tries to reason with CD, but is interrupted by Morbius, whose need for blood supersedes any sort of reason or common sense. He goes for the glittering god, and Blaze moves to stop him, but is in turn halted by the sewage-scented mitt of the Man-Thing. And it seems even a ghost can know fear, Blaze burning beneath the muck monster's touch. He recoils, scrambling to the safety of his bike, and speeds off, but it seems the werewolf has joined the fight, unseating Starseed from his mount while furiously clawing at his glimmering form. In disbelief, Starseed cries out why, and Morbius hisses the answer. They are jealous of his perfection, and he will die for it. Blaze does his best to moderate the conflict, firing a bolt of hellfire at the enraged Morbius. The living vampire turns its wrath to Blaze, swooping after him with the intention of drinking his blood. Yowza! Simultaneously, the werewolf continues its savage attack on Starseed, but when it nicks him in the neck with a claw, the tone abruptly changes. Starseed is in pain, and he does not care for it. Not one bit. In fact, the sudden physical sensation terrifies him, and we all know, whatever knows fear, burns at the touch of the Man-Thing. Enraged at all of the conflict, Blaze breaks away from his fight with Morbius and slams Man-Thing with his bike. The swamp creature is down, but in that moment, the werewolf strikes, going for the weakened Starseed again. Firing another bolt of hellfire, Blaze drives the werewolf back, but the damage is already done. Starseed lies flat on his back, bleeding out. Boy, that horse of his wasn't much help, was it? He uses his ebbing power to briefly return the monsters to their human forms, essentially to rub it in. However, it's over as quickly as it began, the monsters returning to normal. And while the werewolf and Man-Thing simply wander off, Morbius realizes just what he has lost and flies off shrieking into the night. Not to be outdone, Starseed delivers his own dramatic soliloquy, shedding a single golden tear before dropping dead. What a drama queen. Then it's over as quickly as it started, with the mountain fading from view like some fevered dream, leaving Blaze to push his now empty motorcycle to the next gas station. What a letdown. Well, this time the aforementioned monsters did appear in a story together. They were hardly a legion. Instead of the tense and tension-filled tale of four characters coming together to form an unlikely team, we get some simple intellectual take on violence and man's inhumanity to man. It's frustrating because the assignment seems so simple, but instead of hammered horror, readers were given 18 half-hearted pages with no real direction or purpose. And let's not get started on the art. Frank Robbins was a proven talent in the industry, but by the late 1970s, his work felt rushed and inappropriate to the source material. The combination of bad story and unappealing artwork meant that this one was doomed from the start. Unsurprisingly, there was no follow-up issue featuring this lineup of characters. Indeed, by the end of 1975, Marvel was more or less done with monsters, having seemingly bled the concept dry. Oh sure, comic titles like Ghost Rider and Tomb of Dracula soldiered on for a bit longer, but these were outliers, rare survivors of the horror purge. However, evil this great can only be put down for so long, and the Legion of Monsters rose once again in 2011, but this too quickly passed. It seems that monsters are simply meant to walk alone, however lonely a road that may be. And that's a shame. As I've always said, the more, the merrier. Thanks for tuning in, and have a happy Halloween. If you're looking for more spirited reading, why not check out my debut novel, The Cult, at the link below. It's powerful fun. I'm Jason Mink, and I'll see you next time at breakfast.